here, Declan Goff on Mackey and Judd, sans Phil, at least for this portion,
That's right.
on the Wild and Kirill Kaprizov. And something that you alerted me to that was in a Michael Russo piece in The Athletic that I think had more to do with the Olympic team and the Olympic teams, I should say, plural, and the
Sure.
potential for Wild players to play on those teams. But within that, you sent me last night a very interesting few paragraphs on Kirill Kaprizov. Why don't you recap or read those to us, and we can react to what has now turned into a really an ongoing soap opera.
Yeah, friend of the show, Michael Russo, reported in The Athletic on Wednesday afternoon that as of now, quote, Kaprizov, 24 years old, has still not re-signed with the Wild, and things have suddenly become contentious again in negotiations that seemingly won't end, despite Minnesota offering a player with 55 career NHL games, $9 million a season. And what's more, every day that goes by without his name on the dotted line makes for a more possibility that he won't be on the ice for the first day of camp, because after he signs, as Russo points out, he needs to secure a U.S. visa. And a Canada visa for that matter, a negative COVID test, and we're not sure if he's even vaccinated yet, or at least has had the Moderna and Pfizer or the CDC and FDA approved
US
vaccines
shots,
here, the
basically.
US
Yeah.
shots basically. There is a
Yep.
Russia shot that has not been approved from the NHL's side, and the
Yep.
NHL has also released their COVID protocols. So yeah, this is trending in a poor direction. And again, is it more probably Kaprizov's agent? Yes, but I don't think Kirill is completely at fault here. I'm not just going to use a language barrier or use something as, oh, it's just a 24-year-old kid who wants the moon and he's not going to do anything until he does it. He definitely has a play in these contract talks. But for God's sakes, Kirill, I mean, sign this contract. At 55 games, you're getting $9 million. You're going to be a free agent again when you're 28, 29 years old. I don't think that's a bad spot to be in. You can get another similar deal if you keep up this level of production. If he's not ready to go by training camp or has not at least signed the contract, for God's sakes, I would start to panic. I would absolutely start to panic if I'm a Wild fan. You and I talked yesterday on Judd's Hockey Show, Apple, Spotify, Score North, and on our YouTube channel that if you didn't find this center, all right, well, if it's Marco Rossi and Matthew Boldy, they better be ready right away, because otherwise it's going to be a Victor Rash show again. So I hope to God Kirill signs his contracts. It would take some burden and give every Wild fan and people who are covering the Wild a little bit of an exhale. But I don't know, Judd. This is, to me, trending in, again, a poor and cloudy, murky direction as the regular season nears here in about 6 weeks.
Two thoughts off this. One is this has clearly become a battle of wills, not with Kirill Kaprizov, but with Kaprizov's agent and Bill Guerin. And Bill Guerin knows that Kirill Kaprizov's options are basically nil at this point. So if he wants to play hockey, he's going to play hockey, at least with a non-club hockey team for the Minnesota Wild. That's thought one. The second thought, and this is the most important thing, and I've talked about this before, Kirill Kaprizov is flat out getting terrible advice. I don't ordinarily just side with teams, as most folks in this town know. I'm often negative towards teams because I think that the local teams at times are wrong and don't do a good job. But in this case, I side with the Wild completely. Kirill Kaprizov decided, and his family decided, that when he was drafted in 2015, he was going to stay in Russia, and he stayed in Russia. That cost him the National Hockey League contract clock from running. Okay, that's all fair, but that's a decision. He didn't come here till he was 24, and he came here 24, and he was fantastic. That being said, though, he then switches to an agent who clearly told him, I can get you the world right now. You'll get a 3-year contract. That's not going to happen. I don't even know that there's any ill will, and this is the frustrating thing, between a kid who's in Russia, or not a kid, a young man who's in Russia with a language barrier and the Wild. I think this is completely the doing of an agent who has overpromised, who the Kaprizov family, I'm sure, saw what Panarin got from the Rangers, but that was a different situation by that time. It started out the same, but remember, he had to get a bridge contract. He went to Columbus. Then he got to the Rangers. That all had to unfold. They're like trying to skip right ahead to the Rangers step here by getting him a 3-year contract. So this is just bad advice, and a kid who doesn't necessarily have probably the greatest stronghold, certainly on understandings of the English language and what's going on in this league, and his family are being given bad advice. And Bill Guerin knows that. And Bill Guerin, I think it looks like, is dug index. And I
Yeah.
think I think in this case he should, because I ain't giving the guy a 3-year contract. He's getting 5 years. That's what he's going to get. And at 5 years, if he wants to walk, that's his decision. But like, there's no goodwill gesture of saying, well, if we give him 3 years, he's going to stay for sure. So if you're the Wild, you need to play hardball. They're doing the right thing here. I would do the exact same thing, because there's no trade-off here. That's okay. We gave him a 3-year contract. Now we really feel like he's going to come back in 3 years. No, he's probably going to leave. So yeah, this is a guy who literally made a decision to stay there, which was his choice, but it was going to cost him. And now somebody doesn't want to pay the piper for that choice. That's ridiculous. The Wild's right here. Sign the damn contract and get it done. And if you got to fire this guy, fire this guy. But if you want to play hockey, dude, this is not about your decision about what you're going to do unless you do not want to play hockey. If you want to forfeit playing hockey, that's up to you. But that would be a shame, and you'll cost yourself millions eventually. So, yeah, this is one where I will defend the team. I think what the team is doing is exactly right, and I think what the player is doing, and his representation especially is doing, is complete malpractice in this case.
Yeah, it's frustrating to see as a Wild fan after what you were able to see in 55 games. Fans weren't in the building for the most part until the last couple weeks of the season, and I wanted to get this signed. I want to just take care of this. I want to watch this guy again. You and I were lucky enough to be in the press box this last year and we were able to see him in person, and it was fun from up top, and I want to see what he does. But it is Reckless Speculation Thursday, Judd, and I did find this Reckless Speculation trade idea on the Wild subreddit page.
Reckless speculation.
So I will give credit to the Wild subreddit page, which was posted last night. Assuming our golden boy, which is Kirill Kaprizov, really hates Minnesota and wants to play on a coast. Let's just call it coast. And I love this reckless speculation from Ned Flanders' giant word that I can't say on radio. But I think you can finally figure out what it is. Okay. He says, would you trade Kaprizov and Matt Dumba to San Jose for Thomas Hertl and a first-round pick of San Jose's? Reckless speculation. So Cap and Dumba to San Jose for Thomas Hertl and San Jose's first-round pick. This would give you an opportunity, because if you're trading away Kaprizov's rights, that creates $9 million. So if you get Thomas Hertl, you have found your center. You can use that money to possibly lock up Thomas Hertl, even use some more of that money to maybe lock up Fiala long-term this time again next summer. So Judd Zulgad, Kaprizov, and Dumba to San Jose for Thomas Hertl and a first-round pick in 2023.
Reckless speculation.
First of all, I would need to have a long-term contract with Hertl done before I made the trade. So I'm not making the trade unless I've got a long-term contract with the player done, because he's going to be a free agent after this season, and I have no interest in this trade if he doesn't want to sign here long-term. Second of all, I'm going bigger game hunting if I'm trading the rights to Kirill Kaprizov. Thomas Hertl I like, but if you trade Kirill Kaprizov's rights, you got a lot of teams involved potentially. I would imagine that with the cap, the Rangers might have some problems, but they would probably make an attempt to get involved. The Kings would make an attempt to get involved. Much like with Ben Simmons, I'd like to get him out of my conference. I don't really want to be facing him in the playoffs in my conference if I don't have to be, unless I get such a good trade from the team that makes it in the conference. But I'm probably going to try and swing a trade that gets me a younger, hotter prospect than Hertl. I get that. I could see, if you're going to keep him in the conference, I could see going to the Kings. Kings got a ton of really good young talent.
Yes,
if you trade Kaprizov, you're talking about a marquee player who again would have to work out a long-term extension. Like, if I'm the Kings, I'm not taking him until he says, okay, I'm signing an 8-year contract with you, or the Rangers. But if I'm going to make a trade, I'm probably going after a guy who was a top 5 to 3 draft pick in the last couple of years. The Kings have Byfield.
Byfield's a good one.
Who's not up. Who actually has 2 really good players that I like a lot, and they've been bandied about talking about reckless speculation in the Eichel trade, and I think they both. I think the Ducks said they won't trade him, but Trevor Zegras, who's a really good
Yeah.
young player,
Yep.
and another defenseman I love by the name of Jamie Drysdale.
Yeah.
And then the Rangers have the top overall pick from the 2020 draft. That's what I'm going after. I want one of those guys. I want a controllable, cheap, potential superstar asset, because I'm assuming that you worked out a deal with Kaprizov. Like, I'm allowing you to do that. And if he's like 8-year contract, I'm like, okay, now I want one of your top prospects back. So Hurdle to me, that's not going big game hunting enough. How about you?
It's a little much for. I like Hurdle. I'm with you too, and he's a damn good center. He's a number one center. He's 27 years old. He'll be 28 in November. He's seeking a long-term contract. The Wild have gotten into trouble sometimes, inking guys on the wrong side of their 20s to long-term contracts. I like the Kings proposal though that you mentioned. Yeah, Quentin Byfield would be an option. Alex Turcotte, another center that they drafted high, could be another option to get. Look. And by the way, I know a lot of people are probably just pounding their heads like, I can't believe you guys are talking about a Kirill Kaprizov trade. We didn't come up with this trade, okay? This was sent to me by on the Reddit page, and it's fun to talk about.
Well, and at some point in time, too, this is a problem.
Right.
I think he'll sign, but at some point in time, you're going to have to. And look, I don't have the feeling that Bill Guerin is going to give in here. So if they really are going to sit their client out for an extended period of time, I mean, if he says, I'm not starting the season, Bill Guerin is either going to let you rot, or he's going to get a really good deal for you. So yeah, I don't think we're to the point here yet of Kirill Kaprizov being traded by any means.
No.
But believe me, this is not one where I don't see the Wild saying, all right, you win 3 years.
Right.
And that would be the only way that we could take these discussions off the table completely, right?
No, not at all. If it's 3 years, I'd be pretty disappointed. Now,
it's not going to be 3 years. They won't do it.
I've told you before too that look, if they get a Stanley Cup in those 3 years and Kirill wants to walk, okay, that's great. But I'm also putting pie in the sky, and I'm manifesting in a Stanley Cup in 3 years. I'll do whatever it takes to do that. But yeah, they're not going to do it. I hope to God that just gets done here soon, man, because it's not just inking the contract that has been the dilemma here. He has to come over here. There's a work visa issue. Kevin Fiala ran into this when he had an RFA status 2 years ago. Last year, he wasn't the same player coming into that RFA for the first 20 games. Kirill's a more talented player than Fiala, so I'm not completely panicked that, for the first dozen games or so, he might look really rusty. I think Kirill's worst night is still better than a lot of players' good nights. But Wild have to figure this out. Time is of the essence for them to figure this out. They got to get it done.
I think they have. I think it's sitting there on someone's in Bill Guerin's drawer. That's the weird thing. I think they have figured it out. The Kaprizov camp has to decide if they're going to sign it. I don't think they're backing off this, Declan. I don't think there's incentive to. So, like, that's what's weird about this. The other problem that we discussed extensively, but I'll just broach it again on Judd, that we discussed on Judd's Hockey Show, I'll broach it again today, is this. If you look at the situation right now, the Wild has a 1-year window in which they can make some moves and be pretty damn good before the salary cap hits come back and start to bite them in the ass. And I'm talking about the Suter and Parise contracts. So if Kirill Kaprizov comes over late and Kirill Kaprizov struggles, he doesn't get off to a great, that's a big deal. That's a problem. So Kirill Kaprizov with the Wild has a 1-year opportunity here to potentially be part of something special. And then he might be part of a rebuild a little bit. And again, it's not his decision to make to bail on that, because he didn't come over here for however long he didn't come over here. If he comes over in 2018, right? 17, this isn't a problem.
Mm-mm.
It's a problem because he decided to delay coming over and playing in this league while he was playing so he could play in Russia and the KHL. So I think the Wild's doing the right thing. I'd play hardball. And the last thing about this too, if you're Bill Guerin, this is the first real hardball negotiation that you've been involved in. And I don't think you want to set the precedent when you're in complete control of backing down. Do you? Like if he backs
Yeah, no.
down here, everyone's going to be like, we won ours then, because our guy's really a free agent. So I think there's a lot at stake here as far as Bill Guerin sort of digging or planting his flag in the ground as a GM and showing that he's not just going to get run over by an agent who promised his client too much.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, with Kirill, if he would have just stayed here, or if he was here earlier, well, he could have been doing a lot of golfing, and he could have went to his friends at PXG Minneapolis and Southdale Center and got a new pair of clubs. And you know what, Kirill, why don't you come over here and get a fitting done? Because now is the best time to get a fitting, Judd. The golf season's winding down. Might be able to get a nice little deal here and there. There's new Gen 4 drivers, these Gen 4 fairways. And you know what? You and I have talked about the putters, which I have been looking into at pxg.com. And there's the Gunboat, there's the Spitfire, there's the Closer, there's the Mustang, the Blackbird. There's plenty of options for Kirill if he wants to up his golf game as well. And there's plenty of places to golf here in Minnesota. So Kirill, when you ink that 5-year contract worth $45, $50 million, and you want some nice summertime in Minnesota after you raise a Stanley Cup, well, after the parade's done and after the partying's done, head on over to PXG. You got a nice pair of golf clubs. You can hit up on the golf courses. PXG in South Minneapolis, whether you're a Kirill Kaprizov or a Joe Schmo like me, they're going to help you up your golf game. PXG Minneapolis and Southdale Center.
Don't forget, if you really like golf too, and let's just say that you don't make the playoffs at all, it's an even bigger break because then you can hit the course in April, baby. You can get right out there and hit the course. If you're Kirill Kaprizov, you go from the last regular season game to the golf course the next day. You don't care. Your life's fine. But yeah, sign the contract, dude. Sign the contract. All right. It's been a Reckless Speculation Thursday, a in-depth scoop session with our guy Doogie, followed by more Reckless Speculation and actually some unfortunately not so reckless speculation about what is going on with Kirill Kaprizov. We will talk to you next time.